So this beer is made with 100% rice. That means I didn't use any barley at all, which is what usually makes beer beer. A lot of things sort of went wrong making this 100% rice beer, but in the end, I think I managed to produce something that truly is unique and actually quite delicious. So a couple of months ago, I did a pop-up in Singapore where I made a whole bunch of Korean rice wine and sent it to Singapore. And myself, along with a few dozen followers, had dinner and tested some of the rice wines that I made. Well, to get all of that rice wine to Singapore, I had to drive up to Seoul and drop it off at somewhere called the Sul Company, who educate about Korean rice wines and other Korean traditional alcohols. They also do some brewing there as well, so naturally I asked if I could take a look at how they brew. And one thing I noticed is that instead of using plain old rice, which would then be steamed and then brewed, they were using this white powder which came in this big paper bag. Now this got me wondering, were they using rice flour for all of their rice wines? But as it turns out, that white powder was actually powdered puffed rice, like the same puffed rice that Rice Krispies are made out of. And it turns out that making rice wine out of puffed rice powder is a thing. After all, it's already cooked, which means the starches are bioavailable, meaning they can be turned into sugar without needing to cook the rice first. In fact, it cuts out a whole bunch of work in the form of washing, soaking, steaming, and then cooling rice before you can even start fermenting it. And this is the type of stuff that gets me excited about fermenting, finding ways to cut corners or just make life easier. So, armed with this new knowledge, I obviously wanted to try do something similar myself. But upon further research online, it's actually harder to get puffed rice powder than I originally thought it was. I mean, I did find somewhere to buy it from and it wasn't that expensive, at about $20 for 20 kilos. It's just that I don't think I needed 20 kilograms of rice flour for one project. So instead, I ordered this bag of 2 kilograms of puffed rice for almost as much as that 20 kilogram bag of puffed rice powder. I should have just ordered the 20 kilograms. Regardless, I had a plan. The original idea was to use the puffed rice in lieu of regular rice to make Korean rice wine. So I decided to go with my regular recipe of equal parts rice and water, and then 10% of that rice weight in koji rice. Now this bag was 2 kilograms of puffed rice, which got me a little worried with the amount of volume this took up. Usually I can get 2 kilograms of normal rice into this glass container, but I don't think I was able to even get 500 grams in. So I decided the next best thing to do is to add the water into the rice and just start breaking down this rice using a stick blender. It started out pretty well and I was optimistic, but by the end of it, my stick blender and myself were fighting for our lives trying to get all of this bone dry puffed rice into this water. I ended up adding way more water than I originally planned to, so I was starting to give up hope on this being a good rice wine. But I pushed through and then added my rice koji, which is going to convert all of the starch in the puffed rice into sugars that will be then fermentable by yeast. Now normally when you make rice wine, the rice, water, koji, and yeast is all mixed in one go and then just set to ferment. And the conversion of the starch into sugar happens at the same time as the conversion of that sugar into alcohol. For this project, I wanted to try convert all the starch into sugar before the process of converting the sugar into alcohol. Sort of exactly how beer is made. And this is actually where this project starts to veer off my original course. I transferred the rice, water, and koji into a glass vessel and then set that into a pot with a sous vide in it. The sous vide was keeping the water in the pot at around 55 degrees Celsius, which is close to the ideal temperature for converting starch into sugar. So I left the rice sludge in the warm sous vide overnight and the next day came back to take it out and this is what it looked like. The rice and water had separated and funnily enough, the koji, which was homemade koji, started to grow a little bit again, which should be totally fine. I suspect there was a little window of time where it was the perfect temperature for that koji to grow. Now, I'm going to be referring to this from now on as the wart, which is a beer brewing term for the sweet liquid made from the process of turning starches into sugar. I poured the wart out into a stainless steel bowl and gave it a taste, and yep, I can confirm that this was now very sweet. I decided to take a Brix reading, which is a way of measuring the sugar in a liquid, despite not really being sure if it would be accurate with all the rice bits in the wart. And it was telling me that this was just about 25 Brix, which would ferment to way above beer level at around 13 to 15% potential alcohol. And by this point, I had kind of given up on the idea of making a Korean rice wine and was fully committed to making 100% rice beer with koji doing the work of what would usually be done by malted barley. So I measured out some hops, in this case, Sabro hops, which I just got as a gift from the website I buy brewing equipment from. And I'll be honest, I just Googled how much hops per liter for beer, and it said about 15 grams of hops per liter. So I measured out about 4 liters worth of hops, and then added half of the hops to the boiling wort, and then just let it boil for about 45 minutes. After which I added some cool water, not only to cool this down, but also water this down to bring down that potential alcohol level. Because this was so chunky as well. Because it was still so chunky, I decided to run all the wort through a sieve before transferring it to the fermenter, and then topping up with more water to bring that potential alcohol down a bit more. Now at this point, anything that touches this wort has to be sanitized with brewing sanitizer. Otherwise, this has a chance to get contaminated and spoil. So I filtered some of that wort through a coffee filter and used my hydrometer to measure the sugar level, and it was now telling me that it was around 6-7% potential ABV if fermented completely, which I'm happy with. So I added the rest of my hops, which I also topped up with a little more citra hops. Now I am not a hop expert. I just bought some different hops to try out, which I think makes this way more fun just to see how it turns out. And then I closed the container, but I haven't added my yeast yet because this is still just a little bit too hot. So I put the fermenter into an ice bath to cool off to a safe temperature to add my yeast. Well, I actually let it sit overnight. So the next day it was definitely cool enough to add my yeast, which in this case, I am using wine yeast since that is what I have available to me. And then setting this aside to ferment for about a week or two, or until I stop seeing the bubbles coming out of the airlock on top. I just wanted to butt in real quick to tell you about my Patreon and YouTube memberships. If you enjoy the content that I make and you want to get videos either early and/or ad-free, or if you just want to help support the content that I make here on YouTube, click the link in the description to join my Patreon, or click the join button below this video to join my YouTube membership. Okay, now back to the video. Once I noticed the amount of bubbles coming out of the airlock come to a near halt, I took a hydrometer reading of the beer to see how much sugar was left over, and it was showing basically no sugar remaining, meaning this beer has pretty much completely fermented to around 6% ABV. I also tasted the beer and it didn't taste too bad, at least. There was no sourness or signs of spoilage. The only thing is that this is still a little bit hazy and there's still a little bit of sediment floating at the top, so I closed the lid back up and I put it in the fridge to cold crash for a couple of days. Then I transferred it to another container using a siphon to carefully siphon up only the liquid and none of that sediment at the bottom. And just to note, again, I'm still using completely sanitized equipment at this point as well. So with the usable beer moved into a fresh container, I added some beer findings, which I think I should not have added to hot water before adding to my beer, since it kind of went weird and jelly-like as I poured it in, but of course, beer findings are basically gelatin. But by adding this beer finding, it should cling to any of the remaining sediment in the beer and then just make it drop down to the bottom, making it easier to separate that top layer of beer out. And so with my beer findings added, I put the beer back in the fridge to cold crash one more time. After a few days, I took it out and it does look a little bit clearer, but the condensation from taking out the fridge does make it hard to see. At this point, this is drinkable beer, but it's flat drinkable beer. In order to get that classic beer look and feel, I'm gonna need to carbonate this. And there are two ways I can go about carbonating this beer. I could bottle carbonate it by adding a little bit more sugar and then putting the beer into bottles. The leftover yeast in the beer will consume that sugar and produce CO2, but by shutting the bottles, that CO2 is forced back into the beer, carbonating it. This is a pretty good low-tech way to carbonate beer, but in my experience bottle carbonating other drinks, it can be kind of unreliable and a little bit dangerous with over-carbonating and bottles potentially exploding, etc. So a while back, I decided to invest in a little forced carbonating setup that uses SodaStream gas bottles and these little plastic 4-liter kegs. I transfer a bit into the plastic keg, leaving any of the solids or sediment behind, and then connected up all my fittings. The yellow and the red fittings are connected to the gas and later on the beer tap. And this long white plastic tube is connected to the yellow fitting, and this will allow the beer to be drawn from the bottom of the keg. I put everything together while sanitizing everything, screwed on the cap, and then connected my CO2 gas to the keg. Now this gas bottle has what's called a regulator attached to it, which allows me to control the pressure of the gas coming out. These little kegs are rated to about over 50 psi of pressure, but to carbonate, we don't need anywhere near that much. So I'm gonna set my gas at 15 psi of pressure and then set both the keg and the gas in the fridge for a couple days to carbonate. This is because cold liquids absorb gas better, so keeping this in the fridge should mean better and faster carbonation. After another few more days in the fridge, I'm pretty confident this has had plenty of time to carbonate, so I'm gonna disconnect my gas line, and then I've got my mini beer tap that connects to this keg and allows me to dispense the beer inside. I'm connecting the beer tap to the yellow connector since that's the one that has that white tube that runs to the bottom of the keg. So this beer could come out of the tap with just the pressure that's in the keg, but eventually that pressure will go down as I dispense more beer, so I'm gonna need to connect to my gas line again. And then turn the pressure down to about 5-ish psi, which should be enough pressure to consistently just push beer out of the tap. Now this is kind of how all draft beers work at bars and restaurants. This is just on a very small scale. And with everything connected, I can grab a glass, open up the valve on the beer tap, and then try to pour myself the perfect beer. Big emphasis on try there. This took a little bit of tweaking, but eventually I was able to pour a beer that didn't have too much foam on it. I was super happy with the consistency of the foam on this beer, along with the color and the clarity. The only thing remaining, however, was the taste, which I gotta say was surprisingly refreshing, light, crispy, and a little fruity. But of course, that's easy for me to say since I made this beer myself. So I decided to bring my keg of beer to Busan to meet up with a friend of mine, Tina Choi of Doobie-Doobap, and her partner Kevin, and just see what they thought of my 100% rice beer. I've come to Busan to meet Tina, Doobie-Doobap, some of you might know, and also Kevin's over here as well on the side. I brought the beer that I made, all kegged up, and I brought some plastic cups.
Kegged up!
We're gonna do a kegger on the beach.
Kegger on the beach!
You guys wanna try?
Dude, sick. Here, let me get a B-roll of that for you.
So this is beer that's 100% rice. Usually beer is made with malted barley.
What is beer?
Beer is an alcoholic drink made with grains only.
Oh, and rice is
you thought you were
grain?
gonna catch me up with that, huh? So technically even makgeolli is, they call makgeolli a beer because technically it is a beer.
Also, it should be rice beer, not rice wine.
Things like Asahi and stuff is rice beer as well, but it's like half rice, half barley. This is 100% rice. Usually the barley is to turn the sugar into, turn the starch into sugar. I'm using koji to turn the sugar in, the starch into sugar. And that's rice koji, so it is really 100% rice. With some hops. So all the sugar that's turned into alcohol is all from the rice.
That's how people call me.
That sounds like a you problem. It's like really light, like a rice beer, just giving you some expectations going in. But it kind of like gives sake vibes too at the same time.
I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, cheers.
Okay, John.
Jan! Thank you, Johnny. What's the English word for it? I only know it in French. It has a little bit of pissoir. I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. Actually, it's very refreshing. It almost, I came into it thinking that it was gonna taste like shike, like the fermented rice drink in Korea, but it doesn't have that sweetness at the end. But it has like an off-dry finish that's really, really nice. I am surprised at how nuanced it is, because I thought the alcohol was gonna be like, because the starch content and the sugars is pretty high, but it's actually very nuanced, very mild. The bubbles are also very small bubbles as well.
I purposely carbonate it to be like that, so it's not too strong on the carbonation. That's why I stopped doing all the bottle carbonating because I do this by gas now. So I have a gas bottle, like a soda stream, which I plug into here and then charge the gas.
Yeah.
Leave it for like 2 days and then comes out like that.
It has a little bit of champagne notes also.
Yeah, it has a little bit of champagne
yeast.
notes.
Yeah, the
Wine yeast. I use wine yeast.
Can I get a little more?
Yeah, yeah.
Done.
I love the color though.
Color is beautiful.
Making this has given me so much more confidence to actually just get into beer and make some really nice, refreshing beers.
You said the alcohol percentage is like what?
6,
6?
5, 6.
It doesn't taste like 5, 6.
Or like 6, 7. It's that puffed rice, which is already kind of golden. And then the hops adds just a little bit more of that greenish tinge to it.
I want this cup to be filled with pellet ice and then just this over. Drink it on a beach.
Actually a good
Like
summer
a
drink.
slushy.
It's actually a very good summer drink.
Yeah.
You did it again, Johnny. Did it again.
Awesome.
This is actually really good. Convinced Johnny to open a brewery in Busan.
There you go. You guys can take these with
Wow.
you as well.
Wow.
We'll take one each from each side. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
So I would say that was a surprising success, even though it is completely just improvised the entire time. I kind of measured stuff, but then instead of measuring how much went in, I kind of just adjusted afterwards. I want to thank Tina and Kevin for coming, even though Kevin's kind of like cut.
Yeah, kind of.
He's there somewhere.
I'm always in the background here.
For being in this video as well. And until the next video.